Unlike some other lessons that we've had, my 2 classes from last year, this is new, so you haven't had a head start on this already. Can anyone tell me what inflation is in the finance context? I'm not talking about inflating a balloon. What are we talking about when we say inflation? I don't know, in everyday life or in finance mainly is what I'm getting at.
The original price of something like being raised.
Yeah, good. That's exactly it. I'll show you inflation. I graduated high school in 2003. What is inflation? This is historic. Who's driving right now? Yep. So that's why I chose this example. This is historical unleaded petrol prices in Australia. So when I graduated in 2003, in South Australia, it was 92.1 cents per litre. Okay? So what does that mean? If my car, which was a little Lancer, I think it was 60 litres. So I could fill up a tank, which I did every week, 60 times by 0.921. That would cost me $55.26 every week. Okay? To fill it up. Versus now, 2024, the average price for unleaded in South Australia, what do you see there? 183.3. So what's that same car going to cost me to fill up? 60 times 1.833. That's painful, okay? That happens with the price of bread. That happens with the price of friggin' everything, okay? Inflation happens because what's happening to the population of our country over time?
It grows.
It's growing. But the resources of Australia, they're not changing. So if you have more people fighting over the same amount of resources, what's going to happen to the price of those resources?
It'll drop.
Huh?
Well,
what happens when there's more competition? If you want it, the seller's going to be able to raise the price because he knows he's going to sell it anyway. Okay? So that's why inflation happens. So what is inflation? What is inflation in the financial context? The increase in price of everything over time. Now, the actual first thing that you actually need to get is the inflation formula. So you can find the increased cost of an item by indexing the original cost for inflation using the inflation formula below. So can you please get that down? That'll be the first thing to get. The cost indexed for inflation is equal to the original cost times by 1 plus I inside brackets, and that bracket is raised to the power of n. What does I stand for? It's the inflation rate as a decimal, and n is the number of years of inflation. What I might do is have this slide over and get that bigger. So you can find the inflated price of anything using the inflation formula. Cost index for inflation equals the original cost times by 1 plus I in brackets to the power of n, where I is the inflation rate as a decimal, n is the number of years it's inflated. We're on time with the timeline as well. If anything, we're a little bit ahead. So next week, you'll get a formative, like a warm-up test. Week 3, you'll get a practice test that looks very similar to the real thing, which I'll mark and give back to you. And actually, we might mark it together, okay? And then week 4 will be the actual thing. And then we're preparing for your exam, which will be in week 8. All right, why do we need to consider inflation? Because all these questions that you've done previously on simple interest and compound interest, they were investments and they took time. If it takes you time to grow your money, and at the same time the price of everything is also growing, your money's not growing as much as you thought it did. Okay? If I make an investment planning to purchase something in the future, what's going to happen to that something in cost later? Is it going to be more expensive or less expensive? It's going to cost more. This leads us to the idea of the real annual rate of return on an investment. This stuff in red, I don't need you to copy it. I just need you to follow along. And this is a major oversimplification, but it's good for you to understand why growth isn't really what it says it is. Consider the following scenario. Say I grew my money by 10% over 1 year. So what did I do? I grew my money by 10%. I made a 10% profit. But if in that same year, inflation caused the price of everything to grow by 3%, did my money really grow by 10%? No. Technically, what did it grow by? It did grow. Good. This is a simplification, but that's the idea of it. My money grows by a certain amount, but because the price of everything increased by another amount, actually didn't grow as much. What would happen if my money grew by 10% and I live somewhere like Argentina or something where the inflation is like ridiculous, it's like 25%. So my money grew by 10% and the price of everything grew by 25%. Did my money grow at all? No, I actually lost money. Okay? So lucky we live in the lucky country, okay? We don't have that ridiculous inflation, but that's the idea. Okay, this is something that should go on your cheat sheet. This is steps for how to find the real annual rate of return on investment. I'm just going to give you until 15:15. Can you get those steps down? And then the example here so that I can demonstrate everything and you can follow along. Okay, 5 minutes. You can chat if you're done. Just don't say names, please. I think Miss M, oh, that was so close. Miss M wants us to pretend that the exam is like some giant big thing, but it's just your topic test for the third topic that we do. Does that make sense? It would be different for methods or other subjects where your exam in year 12 covers the whole year. In general maths, the exam doesn't. Okay? In general maths at year 12, the exam only covers the last 3 topics of the year. Question? Okay. The exam will basically give you a chance to practice. You'll have to use the school-provided graphics calculators. That's why we're practicing with the TVM solver online. This question type's got the most steps, most to do with it. It's also the last question in your test. And if you do general maths again next year, it's literally the same. Do you live down Black Road? So you're walking over there. I see you walking the other day. I'm like, who's that guy? It's like, as tall as the tree. Oh, it's my student.
Yeah, I live down Black Road.
Okay. I'm getting familiar with the area. I bought a mountain bike and they've got a little seat for Leo. It's just on the front. Right around.
Down in the gorge or just like around the road?
I'm too chicken to go down the gorge yet. I've been going around the reservoir. And I probably don't want a child in front of me going at like 40 kilometers an hour down a rocky incline. All right, can we? No, it would be kind of funny for a split second, and then it would be devastating. All right, Bailey invested $5,000, 5.6% per annum, compounding quarterly for 2 years. I want to find the real annual rate of return on the investment if I consider inflation was 2% over the same time period. So according to the bank is telling you that your money should be growing by 5.6% per year for 2 years. But we've established that inflation is having an effect on that, okay? But because it's compounding, we can't just take off the 2. We need to do that giant thing, that giant set of steps there to calculate this. So what was step 1? Step 1, identify the initial amount of the investment. $5,000 was invested. Step 2, index the principal for inflation using the inflation formula. The inflation formula was above, indexed for inflation. What was the formula? It said the original value, so 5,000 times by 1 plus I. What is the inflation rate in the example? Is it 5.6 or is it 2? 2. What's 2% as a decimal? 0.02. And that's raised to the power of the number of years. How many years is the situation we're talking about? 2. So you need to grab your calculator. I'll put it on this side. $5,000 times by bracket 1 plus 0.02 to the power of... Oh, I need to finish the brackets. $5,000 times by 1 plus 0.02 to the power of 2. That tells me if I just left 5 grand for inflation, it would be worth $5,202 anyway after 2 years. Okay? Step 3, calculate what the investment grows to, FV, using either simple interest or compound interest. So now we look at the investment itself. She invested 5 grand at 5.6% per annum compounding quarterly. What app do I use to do any compound interest? So I TVM solver this. I go N. Leave N alone. I, what was the interest rate? 5.6 PV. If the money is going into the bank, what sign will it be?
Negative.
Negative. Year 11, we don't deal with payments. FV is what I'm solving for. PY and CY. How often is it compounding? So how much? 4 times a year. So PY and CY will both be 4. So you are using TVM solver just to work out what the investment's going to grow to. Can someone remind me how do I access TVM solver on the calculator? Apps. Enter. I don't know what N is yet. I'll find it later. 5.6, negative 5 grand. FV is what I'm solving for. 4. Okay, now I can work out what N is. It's 2 years and is compounding 4 times a year. So how many times is it going to compound overall? 8 times. Remember that you can do maths in the top. Look, I'll go 2 times by 4 and it spits out 8. Can someone remind me how I solve for something? In alpha, enter. So that tells me 2dp. That tells me Bailey's money, if she did this investment, it's going to grow to $55.88.22, which is good. Okay, I earned $588.22 in interest, which is awesome. But the last step, 4, is where we consider the effective inflation, that 2% reduction in that. So what was the last step? Using TVM solver, enter. N is the number of years. So N. How many years was this whole setup for? 2. I is what I'm solving for, so I put a star there. PV, if you look at the instructions, PV is the principal indexed for inflation in step 2 as a negative number. Which one of these numbers is it? Is it the 5202 or is it the 5588? Good. So PV is going to be negative 5202. In year 11, we ignore payments. FV. What did the instructions say FV was? This is the amount the investment grew to, found in step 3. So this is going to be $5588.22. PY and CY in the instructions say that you leave them at 1. So TVM, leave that alone, negative 5202, 5588.22. So basically what that calculator is going to tell me is if my money grew from 5202 to 5588.22, how many percent did it grow each year? Alpha, enter, 3.6, apps, finance, TVM, 3.65 to 2dp. So what does that mean? The real annual rate of return is actually 3.65% per annum, considering inflation. The bank tells you it's 5.6. And technically it is, yes. But because the cost of everything is growing by 2% at the same time, your money only grew 3.65% each year.